From Lowcountry politics to the church shooting in Texas last weekend, I sat down with educator, former Charleston County School Board member, and Emanuel AME historian Liz Alston for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Well, Liz, it is so good to see you again.
Yeah, we're always meeting like this, doing interviews.
Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. Yes, ma'am.
I think it's a time and a place for just about everything.
Let me go there because, you know, obviously last night was like a political bloodshed here locally.
Yes, 3 incumbents in danger of losing their seats. And I think that incumbents are easy to blame and people come in with promises. And next election it'll be the same thing. They will be the incumbents, but it will be interesting to see how it plays out. Politics makes strange bedfellows.
And then in Mount Pleasant, of course, Linda Page is no longer the mayor of Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, I've been watching Mount Pleasant politics from afar. And of course there was a lot of discussions about unfair play practices. But not living in Mount Pleasant, I can't comment too much on what happens over there, except here again an incumbent. And it doesn't matter because I feel that we were talking before, all the incumbents were, say, underlined, or they were probably given favor in the Post and Courier, and none of them seem to have had the same favor with the voters. So being endorsed by a paper, and it's one as credible as the News and Courier, didn't seem to have that much influence on the voters. The voters evidently, we always talk about a fair and unbiased and independent voters, and the voters seem to come out on their own. And I think yesterday's election on November 7th gave that. As a resident of downtown Charleston, the only thing I could have voted on was the referendum on affordable housing. So I trotted on down to my voting place, and in 2 seconds I was out of there. I was not able to vote for any of the incumbents, and that's a strange part. So I can't take blame for anything that has happened.
You know, I was just reading your biography, and I thought I knew all about you. But you ran against Barrett many years ago on Charleston County Council.
I ran for county council, or you were just reading my bio over there. Yeah, I'm a political, a student of politics, I would say, friendly. I ran in 3 elections, ran against Barrett Larimore for county council, and then 2 elections for the school board.
That's right.
And so I've had kind of a tiny bit of experience on the political scene.
What is the biggest difference between politics then and now, in your mind?
Well, you know, I've thought about that. That's, it's a question. But I feel that, I was telling someone today, it's all the same.
Okay.
It's just as bitter. It's just the game's the same, but just the players have replaced them. But you would find out, not only politics, but if you go back to Abraham Lincoln's time,
right.
You go back to the politics of the Civil War, even with FDR running 4 times. I've always read the politics. Even before that, Woodrow Wilson.
Right.
And then from a historical standpoint, you look at the elections of Hoover, during the Depression times, 33, long before my time. And after our Hoover elections, you find all of the things that played into that part.
Right.
And when I came on the scene as probably as a teenager and early adult in the 60s,
right.
I think that the first election I was able to vote in was the election of John F. Kennedy in 1960. And that was, I was so proud to be able to vote, stood in line in the Kennedy politics. Then the same thing with Nixon.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about the Reagan era, and people thought that the world was coming to an end. And of course with LBJ and all of those places that came in, then you find the Bush eras, very active in the Clinton campaign, 1992, and here on. So politics, all politics is local. I don't, with the Trump administration talking about fake news, and that's in a category all by itself, but I see the candidates, and for what I read, the dirty politics, the players, even though the election, the last election that we had, right. 16 between Clinton and Trump was kind of unusual because he's probably a different kind of politician that we have seen in the past. But aside from the total politics from the beginning to end, I don't see that much difference in the issues are different, the players are, but the parties and all of the other things are just about the same.
You talk about politics being basically local, and obviously, you talk about players and whatnot. In your mind, when you see that the Charleston mayor endorsing candidates for city council, where does your mind go to?
Well, like I said, and even as we were reading it, it doesn't make any difference. That's what I meant by the independent voter. Even though the mayor endorsed a certain candidate, some of them won and some of them didn't. It's just that now I feel that we have more independent voters than we have in the past. And even the endorsement, like I mentioned earlier, the Post and Courier endorsed 3 candidates, or 4.
Right.
And all 4 of them lost, even though, and I've been endorsed by the Post and Courier.
Okay.
But I did not win the first time, but I ran the second 2 times.
Right.
And so I'm thinking that the endorsement, of course I would love to have the endorsement, and I think it was an honor to be endorsed by those areas, but the voters did not. So it depends on the independent voter. I think today's voter is more independent because of Twitter, Instagram, Facebook,
right.
All of these areas. People are in tune to things on a daily basis.
Right.
Now, whether or not, I haven't ever thought of it that way, but I do think that has something to do with it because the millennials, they feel that they have the, that they feel that they know everything all of a sudden, and I think it's wonderful. People like in Black Lives Matter,
right.
I have nieces and nephews and grandchildren that are part of the movement, and I respect them because they are very, very, very focused and independent in their views. And of course I love to banter with them from a political viewpoint, but they just look at me, shake their heads and say, oh my God, you can't do anything with her.
Well, you talk about focus. A lot of people are focused on this, and this is the headlines from KFOX 14 in Texas. At least 26 in Sutherland Springs, Texas church shooting are dead. Gunmen identified. You can identify what happened there because this happened here 2 years ago.
And you're talking about the killing of the 26 people in Texas. And I was talking about it. I find it so coming back. In other words, it was realistic. It was heart-rendering to think that for a second time, persons going into a church, killing innocent people, in that case, ages from 5 to 72.
Right.
Then there are persons who were saying that it's mental illness. But certainly I feel that guns at the hand of most of these people is just criminal. And until I hope that Congress or many of the legislative bodies around the nation will take a look at gun control and make sure that guns are not in the hands of persons who commit these crimes. It's just sure people say, well, guns kill people. So, which means that people kill the people, and then the guns people pull the trigger. But I beg to differ. I feel that persons who have mental illness or persons who do not have gun. Look at the situation in Las Vegas. This person killed 59 people and
Right.
wounded about 500 others.
Right.
In New York City, even though it wasn't a gun, where someone ran over and killed 8 people. I think, and I'm familiar with the area at West and Chambers Street.
Right.
We can just go on and on. I hope that America will not become immune to these things and think about these things as routine. For the past couple of days, like you said, the Emanuel
Right.
9 and the killing of people in churches, and it doesn't seem to bother a lot of people anymore, and that's the scary part.
If you were to look directly into the face of the family members down there, what would you say to them?
I would say, the Lord is my shepherd.
Mm.
In other words, I think in my case, where no other answers are available, prayer comes. The people here, the Emanuel 9, the family says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Right.
My only source of comfort is that I'm now believing what I've prayed. I've said Our Father prayers all along. And I'm saying, so that your heart will not become bitter,
Right.
then you rely back on your faith. That's the only thing that I could do, because you don't want to become hate-filled. Rather than going out there lobbying for gun control, what can you do except do the best that you can, lobby your legislators, so that the guns will not be in the hands of those persons who would use it. And I'm not saying, I know that there are Second Amendment rights out there. I talked to a cousin of mine who's a retired policeman in a northern city. He lives about 85 miles north of New York City. And I can tell his mindset, because he was saying, well, I can't give up my gun because the perpetrator will come in and shoot me, and then I have to have a gun to protect myself.
Mm.
So that's the mindset of some people. And I'm not saying that I know the answer, but I feel that gun control is at the forefront of doing away with the killings, the senseless killing.
Okay.
And I'm saying that if these people, the guy in Las Vegas or the guy in Texas on last Sunday, have not had the opportunity to get these, and I studied the guns, the filometer, the 9mm, or all of those things that he had automatic that he could get in. And many of these people could amass these cache of guns, and nobody's paying any attention to it. So like the guy in Las Vegas, he rented a room, and he had so much ammunition. Nobody paid any attention to that. So I'm saying, I'm just a lay person, just an average John Q. Public person, but if I could see that, somebody else should as well.
Liz Alston, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.